Hello, folks, and welcome to my Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio. That's me. And as always, I have another exceptional guest with me today. It's actually a dear, dear friend of mine for over 13 years. I'm here with Mitch Abrahams. He is the CEO and founder of Quantum Reset. We're going to go on an incredible journey, all things human optimization, prevention, all kinds of treatments and protocols for longevity and wellness. It's very exciting because he is also one of my most fun friends. And I am great friends with him and also his beautiful partner who I've had on the show also, Jennifer Radney, Birth of a Goddess. She's an outstanding, beautiful doula. And so I get to have her other half here today, Mitch Abrahams. Welcome to Lead What You Live.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And so as the show is titled Lead What You Live, Lead What You Live. Mitch, you should all know that I like to refer to him as Dr. Mitch. Mitch is not actually a medical doctor, but he may as well be. He has been working with doctors top in their fields for 30 years and has learned so much and implemented so many different protocols and practices, healing modalities. People have avoided surgeries, cured all kinds of illnesses, again, both prevention and types of cures. And I say cure because I have my own personal experience and how lucky to have Mitch in my back pocket. And we'll get into that about different things that I have experienced where he has supported me and ways that he has supported so many others and the knowledge that I want him to impart on all of you today. So 13 years ago, I met Mitch at a Starbucks, actually. I met Mitch at a Starbucks, and I happened to be talking to somebody about how a very close family member of mine had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. And by total coincidence, he was speaking to another gentleman about a protocol for his wife who was experiencing and going through breast cancer. And so he overheard me talking, and so we struck up a conversation, and he immediately couldn't have been more helpful in wanting to refer me to different doctors, different literature, different protocols to consider. It was just, he was a wealth of knowledge and information and support for somebody that he didn't even know. And so he has such a huge heart, and he just has a love of people and healing, and really believes in living your best life. Like, what is the quality? I always say in that trifecta as a life strategist, the importance of finding that balance in health, wealth, and relationships. But what is the quality of our life experience? It depends on the quality of our relationships. And this is one example of a solid relationship. But without our health, and everything being energy, without our health, what do we have? Health is our greatest wealth. And so having amazing relationships in your life and people who support you, and especially when it comes to your health, I mean, there's no better gift. So I just need to say that, for the viewers to understand who you are and who you have been for me. Super, super important. So, Mitch, you have been in the medical, biotech, alternative, holistic space, working with lots of different devices, exosomes, stem cells, peptides, all different types of different kind of drugs and products, and it's incredible. And you're just an incredible resource for people. So where did it all start?
There was a transition period when I was in medical investment banking in New York City, and I moved to Los Angeles, and I took a little time off. And I invested a year of my time on a medical chat room with doctors all around the world, where they would pose a question, somebody has this issue, and you would hear 5 different doctors from different countries talk about how they would support it, heal it, fix it. And they allowed me as a non-doctor to participate in that, and I did that 4 hours a day for a year. So that was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
And then I At the time, I went from the financial world, I went into doing research with a special whey protein, and the transition came because the company that was so excited about it, I was using it for herpes viruses, believe it or not. The company that was so excited about it was a big distributor and educator for integrated protocols for cancer. So I was surprised. I didn't realize there were hundreds of doctors, sometimes 50 or 100 doctors at a time, that would sign up for a 3 or 4 day seminar on these integrative, progressive protocols that would do everything from high doses of different mushrooms to high doses of IV vitamin C and many other things integrative. And that's where I really got my feet wet and got a greater understanding and decided to go deeper into it and eventually started manufacturing products and sponsoring educational seminars of my own through my other company, Biomolecular Sciences. So what happened was, when the typical rep would kind of go to a meeting and then they would go to lunch, I would stay and do all the lectures. That's just always what I enjoyed to do. So I got to have that experience, and then it was really interesting when I would just distribute, I would manufacture these products and facilitate getting them for these doctors, and some of them I would be the go-between where their patients would order stuff through me, and I would kind of hear how they're doing. And
You
you
get
know,
that feedback.
yeah, yeah, and I'll never forget a phone call from a woman named Karen who ordered this large order of thousands of dollars of an oral liposomal vitamin C. I was actually manufacturing it at the time. And I was like, wow, that's like 3 times more than normal. I said, what's going on? She says, well, I'm in remission. So I'm off IVs and I'm just doing the oral protocol. And in this particular circumstance, this person was blessed, and they were someone that had breast cancer and they had a hysterectomy, a mastectomy, and they were on hospice for 5 months. And now they're in remission and they're off hospice. Now, you're not always that good, but this is a very heavy integrated protocol where the person wanted it and they participated. And that's one of the big things I talk about even today, that we need to participate in getting better, whatever it is, whether it's getting our shoulder better or whether it's, cancer or anything. It's not just, hey, we go to the
Gut
doctor.
health, brain health.
Yeah. And, for instance, we talked earlier about orthopedic protocols if somebody has a bad knee. It's not just about, do I get what stem cells or exosomes or peptide do I squirt in or around my knee, but what other exercises involved to rehabilitate.
I'm
To make
glad you mentioned that because, yes, I had asked you. You see, sports like pickleball has gotten so big in this country now. And you talk to an orthopedist, and they said, well, it certainly made my business boom, because there's a lot of different people love it. And you're on that concrete and those short step movements and stuff. People, everything from the elbows to the knees and the ankles and all that good stuff. Yeah, I got a high ankle sprain playing pickleball, like the second time I ever played. And I'm an active, tennis player, but I prefer to play on clay, not
yeah.
not on the concrete. And so I know many people have avoided the knee surgery, the back surgery, the shoulder surgery with some of your protocols. And so, yeah, what before somebody goes into surgery, what would you say to them?
I would say, first of all, look at medicine like a lawyer. Understand the language. When somebody says, what is the response rate? I would want to really grill that doctor or clinician or healer on what you're recommending versus if I do nothing. It doesn't have to be an alternative protocol. A lot of people don't understand when they go into a knee surgery or knee replacement how much rehabilitation is involved. It's imperfect. I mean, our bodies change as we age. And for instance, with myself, there's certain things I won't be doing. I'm not a professional athlete. I can maintain fitness, but I'm going to do things like, less impact activities. I'm not going to lift as much weight overhead. Sometimes we have to make an adaptation. But you brought up, pickleball is super popular in Colombia now, where our business is. And yeah, the knee is one of the biggest injuries that come up with a lot of people. And people don't realize, for instance, if you look at the stats, I think very high percentage, 70, 80% of ACL surgeries have to be redone. And that's my understanding is it's because an ACL doesn't stabilize the knee as much as the muscles do. So I have a special technology called the Tesla Max. It's one of a kind. It's an alternating current muscle stimulator. And over 12 years, I think I've done it, demonstrated on over 1,000 people,
More
many
powerful than your typical like tens unit.
different.
Different.
So DC current is what every single one is. There's something called Russian stim, which is traditionally known as the most powerful. And this is AC, discovered by Nikola Tesla. And basically, it's the ultimate muscle activator. It's shocking, no pun intended, how efficient this is at waking up muscles. And I'll show people that when they say, oh my God, my knee is really bad, I'm bone on bone, which is very subjective. Sometimes I'll show them, I'll just put it on their quadricep, and they walk around the room and they go, oh my God, I feel a lot better. The knee's not fixed. We're just activated the quadricep so that it's kind of grinding a little less. And no matter what you put in that knee, even if you have stem cells from heaven, the best ones in the world, you'll still need to activate the quadricep and increase circulation in the area and work on all the tendons, muscles, and ligaments around it that are trying to stabilize it from the damage that's inside, or vice versa.
It's like the integration with everything.
Yeah.
So you can have the products and the tools and the devices, but also it goes into you use the word participate.
Yes. Yeah. You need
You
to,
as the patient needs to do the work.
yeah, and
to
not
heal.
everybody wants to do the work, whether it's covered by insurance or not. They want to go to the doctor and get a shot, and then it's all fixed. And that can work for a little while, for a minute, if you don't mind being
Shot meaning like
cortisone,
epidural.
yeah, and those things have diminishing returns, and there's definitely an appropriate time to use them. I joke around and say, when I'm 84 years old and I need to go to the wedding for my daughter's second marriage and it's in a week, I might take a cortisone shot if I have to fly to Europe and my knee hurts. But right now, when we know that it can damage and crystallize tendons or make them more prone to ripping and tearing, and each time you kind of need more, I'm going to do things to activate the body's own ability to heal. There are peptides, there are exosomes, which are the proteins, kind of like God's natural ingredient in stem cells, that we can use that can be incredible. Stem cells.
How does someone know whether or not they might want to use exosomes versus actual stem cells?
That's a great, awesome, subjective question that is an opinion. There's really not a scientific way to measure one being better than the other. What I can say is there are there are exosomes from stem cells, and there are exosomes from amniotic fluid, and they deliver a different, let's say, text message. Both can be great. And then there are exosomes in the half and half in the coffee we had this morning, which probably you don't want to do the protocols with that. There's going to be a difference in the effectiveness. So having the discernment to know which ones are in combination would be great. And then also having a clinician, a medical team that can look at, is it a grade 1, 2, 3, or 4 tear? How much additional damage? How long? And try to make a hypothesis, which, means educated guess. If you have, a complete tear and one part of the, is going one direction, one is going in the other, putting a bunch of stem cells and exosomes in there might reduce a little inflammation, but it's not really going to fix anything. Sometimes the surgery is necessary, or sometimes it's not. Sometimes you live with that tear and you do some of that anyway and you activate the quadricep. You're just maybe not getting back into the game. You're not going back on the football field. But if you're okay doing a cross trainer and not, running or doing pickleball, it might work, or pickleball with the brakes. That's a judgment call.
What's so great is being able to speak to someone like yourself and consult is to get that other opinion before going with the medical professional, right? The actual Western medicine protocol, because a lot of times it's not also just necessarily textbook. For example, my son in high school is a lacrosse player. He did go on to play Division I lacrosse, but in high school, and I'm grateful to say his only real injury, including all the way through college, was a broken collarbone.
Right.
So he broke his collarbone, yet it was still slightly hinged together. Like it was kind of just hanging on there, like it looked like a TP, in the middle where it was broken. And I'm grateful that the orthopedic surgeon looked at it and said, you know what, 50-50, you could go either way. We could kind of pull it apart and put in a plate, to have it healed, straight. or you could just let it heal on its own. It's going to form like a calcium is going to build around it, and you'll have a ball there, kind of like a knot. And so there's always and acknowledging that there's always a risk when you do
Yeah.
surgery, from anesthesia to infection, all kinds of things can happen. So it's almost like, what is it fair to say that surgery should really be a last resort?
Absolutely. And using your son as an example,
Yeah, he went ahead and just healed it on his own.
I called a Harvard orthopedic surgeon who had a great deal of experience. He was semi-retired young, this is rare, and had a great deal of experience with exosomes and PRP and regenerative medicine. His specialty,
PRP is,
platelet-rich plasma, where
yes.
you amplify the platelets from yourself. So, and he looked at it, at your son's information, and he said, in 6 or 12 weeks, whatever it was, he's probably going to heal either way. If
Right.
you want to put if you're blessed and you can afford it, if you want to do exosomes, it may or may not speed up the process.
Right.
And we have the same question with our friend's daughter who plays lacrosse at like 15 years old, and she's supposed to get a scholarship to a university, so it's a very big deal. And she had some kind of ankle injury, and it was supposed to heal in a certain amount of time. And it was a judgment call, and they didn't mind investing a little bit of money, and they did some exosomes and some Wharton's jelly. And unless she has like a twin, we'll never know. I mean,
And I've
it all
heard about
heals.
that. What is Wharton's jelly?
Wharton's jelly. So when a baby is born, there are exosomes or stem cells that can come from cord blood, Wharton's jelly, placenta, all those wonderful areas. And in this case, I think the doctors used exosomes combined from Wharton's jelly and amniotic fluid, with another exosome from placenta, and this kid was back in the game. Now, the kid probably would have been back in the game anyway, probably, but it was a judgment call, and they didn't mind. Wasn't life or death,
Right.
but this very anxious kid wanted to get back on the court or on the field sooner, and I know that speeded the process up to some degree.
Yeah, that for sure, for sure. So I have had several things from, I remember having the Delta variation of COVID, and coming to you and doing the methylene blue and the ivermectin and the high dose vitamin D and all these things that were just incredible, and it just in supporting me and healing pretty quickly. Bitten by a brown recluse
Hate when that
spider on
happens.
my way home from a 2-week trip to Nepal that turned into a MRSA staph infection. That was nasty. And you talk about the Tesla, Max. You're talking about that current that also used to move, especially on the lower extremities. This was outside my ankle, and so as a result, it was moving that blood flow to the lower extremity, which is also difficult, right? Aren't the feet, like legs and feet, hardest to heal with circulation? That's why diabetics
Yeah.
run the risk from the neuropathy of getting either their feet or their leg amputated due to that low circulation. So something like having the current to wounds is any area, but especially lower extremities, correct?
Yeah,
I
it
know
can.
it helped hugely in healing that infection. I had never, ever, ever, and I'm blessed to have had a back injury. And recently I was helping somebody move and doing all these different things, just too much in 1 week, overly strained. And it's like, okay, what do I do? So I end up going with, Mitch's great energy worker, and we do cupping, and we do, some exosomes and these things. And it was really incredible, like quick protocol. I could barely move when I had gotten up like in bed one day, and it wasn't a particular tweak. I just knew I overdid it. And I actually learned also that it was actually abs were too tight. So
Yeah.
abs too tight, pulling on the back. And so had this whole treatment and was immediately better. It was like incredible. And that's my experience with everything. It's just there's all these different, protocols that you have. Now, for the viewers to know, you talk about Wharton's jelly and exosomes and stem cells. Not all of these things are readily available in the United States, correct? I know you have a clinic in Colombia.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so some of these things people are aware they need to go outside of the country for treatments. Some things are, available in the US. Like, oh, is a Wharton's jelly available?
So exosomes and stem cells, as of today, are, I believe, technically only available for topical use. There are many clinicians that will have you sign a waiver and are comfortable doing them in certain cases for different orthopedic issues, things of that nature. We're blessed that we're in the state of Florida. Sometimes I call it the country of Florida. And over the next 30 to 60 days, there's new legislation, kind of like the war we used to have about cannabis, state versus federal. Now we're going to be able to do stem cells and exosomes in the state of Florida. There's not a legal opinion, but that's my understanding. If they're manufactured in the state of Florida and the manufacturer meets certain criteria, like CGMP, that they know that they're sterile, even if they're not FDA approved, they're going to be able to do that on a limited basis for certain circumstances. And then the live, cultured, expanded stem cells are still available outside of the United States. And in Medellin, where we have quantum reset, in some cases we do stem cells, exosomes, peptides, rehab, all integrated together. Because to live better longer, sometimes that's what we need if we want the best possible outcome.
Ah, yeah, makes sense. And so let's talk about peptides. So there's this whole big thing. Everybody has been, it's like it's in the news, and all of the, in particular, it kind of started with the GLP, what's it, glucagon like
Yeah.
peptides, right? Which were initially used, to my understanding, for diabetes, right? To lower the blood sugar or the insulin. Could you speak into that,
I
what
mean,
these
many
GLP
many
peptides
peptides
are?
have been around for decades. A very popular peptide is called insulin. That's a peptide. A lot of people don't realize
So
that
that, oh, so insulin is a
it's
peptide?
actually a peptide.
Okay, so what then are we defining? What is a peptide?
Peptides are amino acids. Technically, my understanding is by definition, amino acids are not drugs. A big drug company came out with with the GLP-1 called semaglutide, and everyone went crazy because it has this wonderful ability to turn off the food noise, to really regulate blood sugar. And now there's a GLP-2 and a GLP-3, and these things can be great for some people. They can be fantastic. My father's lost 150
For you're
pounds
saying great for people for weight loss,
for weight loss. Yeah, basically, if you
not
can.
just for its original intention of regulating insulin and blood sugar.
Well, if you think about it, if you look at it, there's a drug called metformin, and a lot of anti-aging people are a big fan of it for a good reason. And if you look at studies, people with cancer that take metformin live longer. Why is that? Because they're controlling their blood sugar. And there's been supplements for 20 years for everything from chromium bicolinate to vanadol, sulfate. There's all these things that help support how your body uses blood sugar. I mean, the worst thing to do, I mean, there are some crazy bodybuilders that actually take insulin. But anytime you would do that, you would, I mean, it could be a lot of problems, but the idea behind is to have your body use insulin more effectively. And these GLP-2s and 3s hit multiple pathways. So they not only turn off the food noise, but some of them start burning visceral fat a little bit without overhyping your metabolism, like the old stuff, like, ephedrine, aspirin, and caffeine will do that, but that'll burn, that'll kind of like, it'll burn out your adrenals, and it's more of like speed. And I believe, and a lot of smart people believe, that if you do these things in moderation, some people call it microdosing, and I'm a believer that
Not to be confused with psychedelics.
no, and there are people I'm sure that do it simultaneously, and that's good for them. But nevertheless, I'm a believer that it's a gram of protein per pound of body weight, and there are things you can do to protect muscle. If you have no business doing these things, if you're not exercising, twice a week, lower body, upper body, some type of resistance training. And there are some really cool things you can do in combination.
Because what's going to happen?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you look at these studies and how much over time, the more and more GLP people take, if you put them on something called a DEXA scan, where you really could analyze muscle versus fat, they're going to start burning more muscle than fat. And if you turn off your food noise and you're not very hungry, shame on you if the first thing you grab is a piece of bread or a bagel. You should probably have an egg, because then you're going to be
Right.
like, I'm full. So we want to prevent the body from breaking down, and we want to be even more self-aware of it if we're using these amino acids that really turn off the food noise. We want to be more sensitive to that.
Yeah. So we don't want to, people can become skinny fat. So they end
Yes.
up losing losing weight, and then losing. They focus on the scale, but meanwhile, and clothes, of course, are fitting better. But women start losing their tits and ass, and it's not.
Yes.
It's like, okay, well, what looked better before or now. So it's become really a pretty big thing. These peptides. There are along those lines too. Is the product? There's like network marketing companies for berberine. Is it?
Yeah, and berberine, I mean, I just saw a study the other day that when they compared berberine to an antibiotic for people that had something called SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth, not good. And it's all about our microbiome, right? And when these people took it over, I think 20 days or 30, for 2 weeks, the results were equal. But then a month later, 20 or 30% more people had eradicated their SIBO from berberine than from the antibiotic. I use a supplement called GLP Recycler. It's also been called AMPK Charge. It's from
Oh,
a
the
company. Yeah.
quicksilver.
And it's a super berberine combined with cinnamon, a super healthy fat called phosphatidylcholine, that's even been used in Europe because it dissolves plaque and other things historically in other products. And this combination supplement seems to give us ketones, puts us in a state of burning
A
fat.
metabolic activator.
Yeah, in about 30 minutes. So, in my experience, and experience a lot of people I've worked with and seen, and the doctors I work with, if people take something like this, and they take bitters, which are called digestives, when you go out, to a bar and you drink
Oh,
an old fashioned.
absolutely. That's another thing, So I have a bottle of bitters. It's like what's in a typical old fashioned. Not that I'm drinking old fashions, but put the bitters with like a club soda with an orange slice, or
Yeah,
with some fruit. It is great for the digestion.
yeah, it's the drink of choice for my daughter. She's going to be 15. Club soda and bitters. And I don't remember how long ago it was, but there was a time when ships would come from Europe to the United States, and they said if we're only going to have one medicine, what would it be? And it was bitters. It seems to affect a lot of different pathways, stimulates the liver and the stomach a little bit, and there's an issue with gastric emptying when people take these GLPs. So we've
It
seen,
slows down.
yeah, it
It's
slows
slowing
down,
down,
which
and
is
that's
why
why people feel full.
they feel full. And then also, like if you're planning elective surgery, you're supposed to let them know, stop a few weeks before anesthesia. It can be problematic. So you want to let them know something like that if you have that choice. But we've seen great success with people using a berberine type supplement like GLP Recycler, using bitters. The one from Quicksilver is fantastic because it's all concentrated. When they put this all together, they need less GLPs and they do better longer.
Is it something that people is it a protocol that they go on for a particular period of time, and then once they achieve an ideal weight, you wean yourself off, you stay on it? Like, what's the deal with these?
That's a tough one to answer because there's no right answer.
Because so many
There's a
supplements,
lot
it's
of
like,
opinions. I can just say that from the success we've seen, it shouldn't be like some cycle that we think we're going to fix it in 4 to 8 weeks. Our medical team likes to look at things 4 to 6 months out, and somewhere in that 3 or 4 to 6 month range, they might change from a GLP-2 to a GLP-3. Sometimes they add other hormones that affect the human growth hormone pathway. These very popular ones, CJC, 1295, ipamorelin, tesamorelin. There's some other fancy
and
ones.
these are good for turning on or
Growth hormone.
supporting growth hormone.
They're called,
What happens when we get older with that?
so it's a fragment of growth hormone. So it's pretty fascinating. They can stimulate your own sometimes. They can burn fat. They can not build a lot of muscle, but maybe offer a benefit for protecting the muscle that you have. And there's a reason why a lot of the actors and actresses we see on TV, many of them for I think 20 or 30 years, my understanding is a lot of them have used growth hormone, and that's why they look better. They look better longer, and this is a way we can access those pathways.
Is there a known research, like what's the downside? Is there an impact to kidney, liver, other organs from these things?
Some of them are shown in long-term studies, like tesamorelin was approved, I think, 10 or 12 years ago, maybe longer, for HIV lipodystrophy when people would get fat in different places, and it burns visceral fat. A small percentage of people will have accelerated heart rate or slight increase of blood pressure. So that's fine if you're a 20, 25-year-old, athlete or bodybuilder, but if you're 60, 70, or 80, clinicians or health coaches should be aware of that. Most of the people we work with, I use a supplement called Cardio Elite that affects nitric oxide, and although I'm not hypertensive, it lowers blood pressure anyway and improves athletic performance. So we would have people use that in combination, and we see it even less, but it's a very small percentage of people. Some people take a protein, they inject it, and they get red and itchy, and it's just not for them. That's possible too. Or they get accelerated heart rate and it doesn't work for them. It's a small percentage, but it can happen.
Yeah, and so with the different, there's so many different diets out there. The keto, the paleo, the Mediterranean diet. I mean, it's endless. The different types of
Yeah.
diets that are out there, and so it's like, are you supposed to be on a particular diet when you're taking the peptides, the amino acids? You know,
It's a great question. I'm not a believer in diets. I'm a believer in changing the way we eat. That said, I've been studying the carnivore diet, and I believe I ate something, this is not a scientific term, called the animal-based diet. So I'm maybe 60 to 80% carnivore. I eat some organic raw cheeses, usually not from cow, a little bit of fruit. So I'm technically not carnivore. And there are other people that will say that for 150,000 years, all we ate was carnivore. And then we learned to grow plants as an adaptation. So I don't think anyone really knows or can prove whether it's appropriate to be 100% carnivore or not. But what I can definitely say that if you're going to be using GLPs and you're overweight, I would look at that with your health coach or your clinician, because
a keto or carnivore, something where you're taking in more protein.
and the meat affects GLP. And there's even a probiotic called Akkermansia that affects GLP, and we'll use that in combination because there's a new one that's stable and works great. So if you're eating lots of meat, you're actually affecting your GLP. You're naturally taking like a GLP 2 or 3 at a very low dose, and it just turns off the food noise. I remember 20, 30 years ago when I would work out a lot and I'd read in these magazines about never eat more protein than the size of your fist, that we only need 30 grams of protein at a time. And if you think about that historically, hundreds or thousands of years ago, when we were hunters, standing behind a rock waiting to spear a buffalo or something, it's not like we had, we're not like we had, okay, we're done eating now. Would you please, wrap that up, put it in liquid nitrogen and throw it in the freezer? I mean, you ate as much as you could. And if you watch a Discovery Channel, I know I do, you see what tigers and lions eat. I mean, wow, they eat so much. It's like they eat so much. And so then they did some studies. And apparently, if we have 125 grams of protein at a sitting, it's better for us than having 30. Our body breaks it down differently. It raises growth hormone. Now, that doesn't work if you start with a baked potato or some French fries. You can just throw the whole thing out the window. Your blood sugar is going to go sky high. So it's a totally different way of eating. So sometimes lunch is a tomahawk.
Why is there so much conflicting information out there and divergent opinions? You have these
Why?
vegans and carnivores. How is it possible that you have those who are vegans have the argument? Not some are for ethical reasons. They're into the cruelty to animals and don't want to eat animals for those reasons. But from the plant-based diet, the vegan, the vegetarian versus the carnivore on the other extreme.
So I'm going to negotiate against both of them for a second. If you've been eating like crap and you need to make a change to your lifestyle, if you go on a meat-based diet or you go on a vegan diet that's organic, you're probably going to improve for a period of time. You're going to improve your microbiome. For the long term opinion of some very smart people, I don't think a vegan diet is good. I think
I
you're going
had
to,
several girlfriends that were vegan for many years and felt that they were just it just like the drop in B, I guess, the B vitamins, and felt that they were just craving red meat. There's the iron in it, and just were not feeling well. Actually, they actually were not feeling well and went back to eating meat,
I remember
animal protein.
talking with Dr. Hal Huggins, famous holistic dentist chemist, and he said it's hard to get a vegan, vegetarian healthy when he works with them. Now, that was his opinion. If you live in some utopian society, I don't know where that is, and you don't travel, and you live on a farm somewhere, and you somehow have this magical ability to continuously source these organic yams and tube vegetables and in the right combinations, and you can mix and match and get complete proteins that might work for some people for a longer period of time. But I don't know about you, but most of the people I meet that are vegans and vegetarians, if they travel and they're out, you ever sit around at a restaurant and see what they eat? When they don't.
A lot of them actually eat a lot of carbs. They
I
eat. They even eat.
Oh, the
They're eating a
pasta.
lot of Yeah,
I mean, that's
pasta and
diabetes
bread
on a
and
plate.
crackers and yeah,
Yeah.
they do. I'm
So
not. Yeah, that doesn't automatically mean like they're like thin yogis. You know.
right, right. So I don't think that works very long, but that's an opinion. To each its own. But if you're doing the GLP thing, wow, I think the protein based diet is the way to go. Some people try to defy that because they keep increasing their dose, and they're having the highest pharmaceutical dose of a GLP 2 or 3, and they're going out for martinis, and they're eating a normal diet, and they're losing some weight for a period of time because they're just eating less, but they're going to burn muscle, and maybe they're going to need to learn a bit about a holistic
Can
protocol for pancreatitis at some point.
can these GLPs help with the increase we have in Alzheimer's and dementia? Because I've heard that considered diabetes type 3 is
Yeah,
Alzheimer. Is it
type 3
type
diabetes.
3 diabetes?
There's a
And
whole
so many, friends have parents who have had to move into memory care facilities and have early onset dementia. And so how is can these protocols for diabetes help it all reverse signs of that?
I believe they can make a major contribution. So could the basics of not eating sugar and processed food, because 100 years ago we didn't have GLPs and we didn't have much Alzheimer's either. So that's something to consider. We're using these amino acids as a crutch, and I'm a big fan of them, but I'm just being objective.
We
Where
have more processed food. You go into the supermarket, and unless you're going to shop around the perimeter of the store where everything is refrigerated, you have 20 aisles of packaged and processed foods.
I mean, something as simple, I mean, I don't drink Coca-Cola, but as a Coca-Cola or some other soda that's made with high fructose corn syrup, and in another country it's just made with sugar, I think high fructose corn syrup screws up your insulin, 5 or 6 times more or something like that. So if we just, as soon as you put sugar in your body, it has an effect with your bone marrow, and your immune system just kind of off, shuts off. So sugar fuels cancer, sugar fuels just about everything. And if you look at cells under a microscope when you have sugar, they get all glummy and they kind of stick together. So sugar's the enemy. If you look at how cholesterol drugs work, the cholesterol drugs work by they actually work related to sugar, your body. And if you think about it, we just went out in the sun like we used to, everyone's afraid of the sun, your body converts cholesterol to vitamin D. And we really need things like that and less sugar. The
Actually,
meat diet
low
works.
cholesterol is not. They're also, again, controversial. Many, functional medicine doctors will say, no, the goal shouldn't be 150 cholesterol. It's that really,
I don't think
because
it's controversial at all.
the brain is made up of mostly, or in large part, I don't know, mostly of cholesterol. Is
Well, let me ask you something. I say to people, you meet a guy and you talk to him and he says, yeah, I take testosterone. I'm 60 years old because it makes me feel good. And what else do you take? I take a statin.
statin.
I say, help me out this because I assume you researched this, that you know where the hormones come from. They look at you and the top of the cascade is cholesterol. People over the age of 70 that have higher cholesterol levels live longer. There's no such thing. Let me say this. There's not an opinion. There's no such thing as good and bad cholesterol. It doesn't exist. This is a made-up term to sell statin drugs, period. In 1992, Merck filed the patent for making statins with coenzyme Q10. Anytime you take a statin, you lower CoQ10, you're at risk for heart failure. So there's an epidemic of this. They know this. The one great thing about a 150 cholesterol level is it sells statin drugs. That's it. So 50 years ago,
Can
cholesterol
lower
level.
cholesterol, is there any research to your knowledge to show that that can cause Alzheimer's? Am I making a
You're
leap here?
turning off your protective
Yeah,
mechanism.
yeah.
So the stupidest thing you could do if someone has cancer is give them a statin to drop their cholesterol. There's a very fancy reason for using a statin. I won't get into this.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing to do with that. But cholesterol is a protective mechanism. If you look at it,
Yeah.
if you just
Yeah.
read the books and see how it works, we actually need it. Now, if your cholesterol's not 300, but it's like 500 or 600, there's a genetic reason. It's called cholesterol mammalian cholesterol. There's
Right.
a bizarre reason why you're making that much. It's totally different thing. When a buddy of mine's lost 75 pounds. He's eating a 90% carnivore diet, and his cholesterol went from like 280 to like 200, or maybe 190 or something. It's just because his body needed less protection. He's eating better. It's not under as much stress.
Stress.
Yeah, when you look at
Stress is like the number one killer of
Yeah.
everything.
yeah, so we need cholesterol. We need it.
Yes, yes. I mean, there are so many topics. Like, we're going to need a part two. There are so many things to look at when it comes to longevity and human optimization. And you do have also an incredible group. I'm blessed to be part of that group, Human Optimization. There are a lot of different doctors in all different specialties and fields that are part of this group, collaborating, cooperating, sharing different information. And I know that, again, quantumreset.com is where individuals can learn more about you, Mitch Abrahams, and your protocols. And if you also, it's Mitch Quant
Quanta Mitch, Quanta Mitch @gmail.com.
at gmail.com. Awesome. And certainly having a consult with you is so valuable because of your wealth of knowledge. One last thing, nicotine. What is the latest on talking about this nicotine? Nicotine
Wow.
is like they're acting like it's a cure for anything.
Growing up, my mother smoked, so I have a disdain for cigarette
Right.
smoke.
Yeah, my
I
parents
can't,
too.
The neuro association of being around it drives me crazy.
Right.
And then
In that form.
Yeah, and in the last 5 years, I've become more and more where I use an indigenous type of tobacco called rapé, where you blow it in your nose. It's been used for hundreds of years in Latin America. People do look at you funny when you do it in South Florida,
Right.
but I do it. But nicotine patches, as long as they're from a source, you can buy them on Amazon, that are organic, that don't have other chemicals or excipients. Nicotine is incredible. There are people, if they look at the subsets of people with COVID, some of the smokers did better. If you smoked and you had a high vitamin D level and you got COVID, you might have not even known it. Now long term, smoking cigarettes is like smoking a battery. You get cadmium, metals, chemicals.
Right.
Nicotine may not even be very addictive. It might be the other things,
That are
the
in it.
excipients that are in there. And there seems to be a direct correlation at the receptors for how nicotine affects viruses and other infections. I can't say enough about it that many people, many of the influencers, health coaches, people I know, doctors, are going to be on a low dose for a very long time.
Right. Thank you so,
You're
so
welcome.
much. I appreciate it. And I can't wait for the to be continued conversation.
Let's
Again,
do it.
quantumreset.com. It's all about health and longevity, people. Health is our greatest wealth. And as everything is energy, energy is everything. So I know I care about keeping my energy high, high, high. So having the benefit of consulting with people like Mitch has been super supportive. Thank you all for tuning in. And it's never goodbye, it's to be continued.